Thanks so much again, guys, for participating. Thanks, Miles, for hosting and facilitating. The stream is just loading now. And let's go. Perfect. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Seeing attendees starting to trickle in, so that's great to see. We're also live across LinkedIn, YouTube, and various other channels. So thanks so much for tuning in, whichever channel you're joining us on. Really excited today to be joined by a host of characters linked to the Amani Institute. I'm going to just introduce Amani as an organization and then hand things over to Miles Bezaden, who is going to host today's webinar. So we partner with the Amani Institute and have done for a number of years now. They're an amazing global nonprofit organization based in Brazil, India, and Kenya that aims to promote global citizenship. They train highly skilled workforce to tackle global social challenges, but are also about helping organizations work more effectively to pursue social change. Hence the title of today's webinar, Stories of Change. So that's a good segue to introduce you, Miles. You work on the communications team at Amani Institute, and we're very lucky to work with you regularly. So you're going to moderate this session, and I will gladly hand over to you to take it from here.
Thank you so much, Jake. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone watching, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone who has tuned in, and thank you to Escape the City for hosting us. But most of all, thank you to the 4 Amani Institute fellows who are sharing their stories of change today. As Jake was saying, Amani Institute is a global nonprofit where our mission is to develop individuals and organizations who lead social impact. Our ultimate goal is to see as many people as possible having fulfilling careers where they are making a positive impact in the world. These 4 panelists are indeed making impact in the world, and we will see a glimpse of it as they present their stories of change in the next hour. But before we dive into who these panelists are, I just want to quickly mention the common thread that weaves the 4 of them together. They have all done our social innovation management program in person in Nairobi, Kenya, or Sao Paulo, Brazil. Just going to share my screen quickly. Perfect. Share. Perfect. Can everyone see the thing? Okay. Yeah, cool. So, oh no, okay, is this still fine? Yeah. The Social Innovation Management course, otherwise known as SIM, is a global postgraduate certificate that brings change makers from all over the world together. We have run 27 programs already, and our 28th hybrid edition will be running online and then in Kenya in the second half of the year. In the program, one can expect to have a hands-on experience within communities, learn from global faculty of experts in the field, and also learn about yourself to align your passion and purpose. We are excited for new fellows to join our community of 609 change makers from over 71 different countries. If you want to know more about our upcoming program, please see the link in the chat and consider applying before the scholarship deadline on May 16th. Now, without further ado, let's change the topic and talk about why we're here today. These 4 fellows are currently sitting in Germany, Switzerland, UK, and Nepal, and will be highlighting a moment of change they've all had to go through or still currently going through. Each fellow has a different take on what change is for them, so we hope at least one will resonate with you. Feel free to post questions in the chat, because after each fellow has had a chance to share their story, we'll move into an open Q&A for the last 20 minutes of the webinar. Now, with much anticipation, I pass over the virtual mic to our first speaker today, Gianmarco.
Yeah, hello everyone. It's a great honor to be here and to share my story of change with you guys. So my story is about a Swiss guy, that's me, who left everything behind and created a business to together with gangsters and former street children in Nairobi. And sounds crazy, I know, but in about 5 minutes it will make sense to you. And my aim my aim today is to inspire you with the fact that it's possible to shift from a corporate career to a social impact career without any risk of failure. And I want to have this takeaway. So my name is Marco Marinello. I am now 36 years old, and I'm residing in Switzerland, and this is the place where I come from. And my journey started about 10 years ago when I graduated with a master's in psychology. And after I graduated, I was really motivated to launch my career. So I wanted to unlock my full potential. I wanted to start a fulfilling career somewhere in the private sector or in the corporate world, as my friends did at this time. So basically, I was also looking for the right place for myself. But as you can imagine, I failed. I couldn't find it at all. So what happened was I changed roles, employers, and even industries each and every year. And I was always starting from scratch again, always with the same aim of finding a place where I belong, or at least a role that I identify with. But I couldn't find it. I was not able to find supervisors or mentors who could guide me there, who could give me advice like, hey, you should take this route, you should focus on this strength, this is you. I was always looking for such people, but I couldn't find them along this journey. And then I reached to a point when I was working as a business analyst in controlling for a trading company, and this was just a terrible job. So I knew at this time I failed again, and something had to change in my life. So I was turning then 30. And I started reflecting, and when I looked back on my journey up to this point, I realized that I didn't fail, because what I realized was that I actually enjoyed starting from scratch over and over again. And I realized that it was even my passion to always reinvent myself. And it was not only my passion to explore all these new roles and environments and to adapt to these new roles. I was also quite good at it. So it was also a skill of mine. But at the same time, I also realized that living this passion was unsustainable. It was not fulfilling at all because there was no goal. It was not leading to any value, not for myself and not for others. So what I had to do was I had to give my passion, this passion of reinventing myself, a purpose. And I gave it purpose. So I made a decision that I wanted to help others to reinvent themselves. So I wanted to transfer this skill and apply it for other people. So more specifically, maybe, so I wanted to become the mentor that I always searched for myself. I wanted to become this mentor for young people who never had a chance in life. And I wanted to help them reinvent themselves. And more specifically, I was very interested in African slums and youth from African slums. So my new mission then was I want to give disadvantaged youth from African slums the opportunity to reinvent themselves to have a better future in life. And this was the time, this was in 2016, when I went to Kenya, the capital of Kenya, Nairobi, joined the Amani Institute and do the social innovation management program they offer. And this is what I done. And through this program, I founded the social enterprise called Nainami. And I founded this social enterprise together with former street kids from Nairobi slums with aim give them a better future free of crime. And Nainami, what this enterprise does is builds on the existing skills of former street children. Basically, street skills and life stories which they've acquired in the process of living and surviving on the streets of Nairobi. And today what they do is they offer a so-called storytelling tour in the city center of Nairobi. Important to mention it's the city center and not slum. And on this tour, they make people from all over the world experience Nairobi through the eyes of a street child. And maybe I can share a slide and you have get a better impression of what it does, if it works. I hope you can see my screen now.
Yeah, we can see it.
Great. And it's called Nainami, meaning Nairobi with me. And it's a 3 hours walking tour. And through this walking tour, they now have a job, an income, and a better future, and they don't have to depend on crime anymore. And they run and own the business themselves, and they've hosted more than 40. Something went wrong. Okay. And I handed Nainami over to these guys 3 years ago, and I returned to Switzerland. And they run it themselves, and I'm still involved in the background. But they do the operations all by themselves, and it's working quite well so far. Fingers crossed. And now I'm back in Switzerland and work for a youth development organization in Zurich, besides some other things. But I'm still following this purpose in investing my resources and time in youth development. And there are basically 2 takeaways. There are 2 takeaways I want to share with you from my story. And what really helped me was at this time, before I went to Kenya or I made this shift, this career, was I broke my goal down in little small steps. So if you have a dream, or if you pursue a new career in the social sector, what really helps is if you break it down into these small little baby steps, and then you will see and realize that it's actually possible to do. And another thing I want to share is that I know it's difficult, but I went through this. You have to change your mindset, and there is no risk of failing. At least this is my experience, because once you've started something like this, such a new journey, you cannot fail anymore, because every action you take will cause some side effects, and you cannot predict the side effects. You can only see them, see them in hindsight. And maybe to share a few is like independent of success of what you are trying to do. The project can fail, of course, but along your journey, you will acquire an interesting story. You will meet new people. You extend your network. You learn new skills. You become an expert in a new field. And all these are side effects that will happen anyway, regardless of the project will fail or not. And this is what I wanted to share with you, that you can understand that the risk actually be quite small, and you shouldn't fear too much. And maybe to close my story, what we always say at Nainami is, if Nairobi's street children can do it, you can do it too. And they proved.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's so amazing. If anyone would like, I'm going to post some of your links in the chat about Nainami and what you do and your LinkedIn and all that. So if anyone wants to connect, they can connect there. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to post them in the Q&A, and then we'll get back to it now. So thank you so much. And then we hand over to the next speaker, which is Clara, who's sitting in Nepal. And I hope, Jake, if you could do the switcheroos. Thank you so much.
Hey, can you see me and hear me?
All good.
Okay, I will share my screen. Hello, everybody. It is I cannot see many, but whoever is listening, it is good that you took the time and actually are interested in listening to our stories and what we went through. And I hope there's something yet that you can take away. I think today I will just go through briefly what I went through over, I don't know, probably the past 28 years by now, and will explain what I felt and what helped me to go to where I am today. And I think life is always a struggle or a change. So I think probably I will always go through these same circles and again as well. I think to understand probably myself and my story better, I start with my upbringing. I was born and raised in Berlin, Germany. I went to school there. I had, I would say, a pretty average life. I had friends over there. After high school, as many, I started working in a restaurant. I moved out from home. I was trying to figure out what to do. So as most who finish high school, I started joining Humboldt University. I studied geography. And life was going, and I didn't really feel bad, or I didn't feel sad, or I didn't feel unsatisfied, but I always felt that something was missing. Actually, from before, I did an exchange student when I was in 10th grade, and after high school, I always felt there was something more out. So within all this time, even though my life, I think, was pretty good and set to continue to just thrive for settling down and getting a job and finishing my study, I decided to take a break, and I decided to leave it behind for a while. And I thought I wanted to travel the world. I made some money working in the restaurants and here and there, and I thought I will start traveling the world. My first destination actually was Nepal, just because it was cheaper than other tickets, and I didn't know anybody who has been there before, and I really wanted to explore something completely different that I didn't know anything about. So I jumped on the flight, like I think 3 weeks later, and arrived in this completely, I guess, different world. And I think a completely new journey for me began. I started living in a country that I didn't know anything about, and I hardly understood the language. I didn't understand the culture. But I was extremely welcomed, and I think it was when I now actually read back in my diary, it was when I was writing, I felt free. So I felt free, like I had all these images. I think that my life back in Germany was put on me, like now you have to study, then you have to find a job, you have to be this way, now you have to dress this way. I felt all these things I could let go for a moment and explore myself again. So long story short, I thought I'd travel the world, but I actually stayed in Nepal over the past 8 years. I think I went for 3 weeks to Thailand to meet my friends, but after that I flew back to Nepal. So for actually a long time, I was switching countries a lot. So I was still continuing my study back in Germany, and I was working in Nepal, and I was living in between these two worlds for a very long time. So actually in Nepal, my life was the complete opposite that I lived back home. I started finding this place. It was a school I started running. It's called My Universe Academy. It was the first free private school in Nepal. So we're trying to give free education, but to a quality level. And instead of paying money, parents actually pay with time. So I found this place. I fell in love with the place, and I think with myself again. And I just started living like people there. I had, running water. I had to carry my water myself. We had to make fire to cook food. And I think I was running a pretty simple life. I was not a resident, so I was suddenly feeling the struggle of getting a visa, or you cannot vote, but still you feel part of the country. So I was going through, I think, a lot of different things. And I think for 8 years, I pretty much dedicated my life to this place and to the kids, because I really felt the impact I was making. But I think now, reflecting back, I think it was really an impact for myself, and I gained a lot because I was able to just explore myself. Within the education sector, I had the freedom to explore different things. I was able to create my own organization and run some fundraising and some trips for students. I arranged an exchange program. So I did all these different things living there. And then I think what happens in life, I was suddenly feeling, okay, I did all this and I was looking for something more. I feel I did my part there and I felt I lived the extreme, but I was, I think, still again in a place where I felt, okay, I think there's even more for me out, and I live now this thoughted life, and I was looking for something else again, which I think gives me back to where I am now. I feel like now my journey has, I feel a little bit more settled. I think this whole urge of trying new things is gone. I found, I think, my place called home. I don't say I'm going to travel to Nepal or I live in between countries. I decided that this is my home and I have a permanent visa here and I make my living here and I have my house here. I have my husband here. So I think actually the small mindset of myself of just deciding of calling it my house and my home made a difference in my life, because I stopped worrying about two worlds. I stopped trying to be two different people. I stopped trying to do two different lives, but I just lived one life. And actually just last year, I mainly lived the village life and moved to the city because I feel life was a little bit pushing me towards growing up. I got married and I started thinking about family and wanting to create something together with my husband, who left his job in Germany and is actually Nepali and wanted to return back here. So together we founded Uplift Nepal, our now own organization in which we are trying to create different projects that can uplift Nepal. And so I actually went back to what is it that I am truly about, because I realized, yes, I love teaching and I love education, but I actually don't love just to teach English or math. It is a little bit more than that, what I want to give to students. So I'm actually currently trying to create a program for young people. It is similar to what I went through during Amani time, but for younger students, so that actually younger people can already start themselves asking questions like, who am I? Like, what do I want to be? Where do I want to be? So now I don't know, in this now new journey in Kathmandu with my husband's, like creating, I feel like, my future and where I hope to grow old. And so it is all like looking back somehow crazy, but for me the biggest change was when I really said, like, this is my home and this is me and this is where I fell. And I think once I did that, things started to fall into place and I fall more into place. And I think for people around me, it also things fell more into place. So I think, yes, that is pretty much my story. I feel, for the last 8 years, it was more for me to gain, for me to explore, for me to learn. And now I feel it is time for me to give what I learned, to create spaces for other people to learn and to create what I want to create. So I feel my learning now I want to give back in this next stage.
Thank you so much, Clara, teaching us about small mindset shifts and calling places home and being okay with who you are. And thank you for the 8 years of your change story and now delivering it so that we can also learn from it. Really appreciate it. Now we're going to pass the virtual mic over to the next person, which is Samuel. Sam, over to you.
Yes, I believe I'm with us, right?
Yes, you are live, as we say.
Perfect. I do not have slides, so I will rely on whatever storytelling skills I have to go through this. So I had a thought about this, what I would say today. And, whenever I tell stories of change, I can sometimes fall into a bit of a Disney trap of sort of starting with my foolishness, following through to error, to crisis, to inspiration, to learning, and then sort of present you with a wise person. But I'm not particularly feeling wise at the moment, nor have I been for that any time recently. So I'd prefer to talk about something a little bit messier, which is what I'll call the perils of seeking change. To give context, I've worked in the field of what I think we call social change for about 10 years. And in that time, I've done a few different things. I've tried to inspire sustainable coffee drinkers in Brazil, safer sex in Sierra Leone, innovative thinking amongst soap-selling entrepreneurs in Kenya. I'm being serious. That was a job. Leadership skills amongst neat teenagers in Tower Hamlets, London. And right now, my role is to try and inspire self-initiative amongst homeless single parents across the UK. So broad breadth. And the most important lesson I've learned over that almost decade has probably been the hardest one. That is that if there's one consistent factor that has consistently got in the way of genuine change, it has been resolutely me. And why do I say that? Well, it's because I bring so many self-deceptions, hypocrisies, hidden intentions, and limiting beliefs that all have their own special ways of getting in the way of change. So to tell you maybe what I mean, let's start with hypocrisy. You see, many of the changes I've tried to inspire over the years are changes that I myself struggle to adopt in my life. My track record on sustainable living is patchy at best. The soap sellers of Kenya showed far more innovation than I had, and many of the homeless single parents I work with have more self-initiative than I do. So it's very curious when I play the role of inspirer, when I find that the people I'm working with are often more inspiring than me. And I've been constantly humbled by that, and I think it has an important lesson in it. And when I talk about hidden intentions, what do I mean? Well, when I started seeing myself as a change maker many years ago, the world quickly started looking like billions of people who clearly needed to change. And I clearly knew the answer of what they needed to do. It became perhaps a subtle form of manipulation, of getting others to behave in a way that I thought was right. And I remember very strongly, I'm a therapist now, and when I was training, I remember once lamenting about a client of mine that didn't seem to be making progress. And my teacher stopped me and sort of more or less banged on the table and just looked at me square in the eyes and said, "Sam, stop trying to change your clients. It's not your job." And that's been a valuable lesson for me. So why do I tell you this? Why do I share these sorts of facts? Well, I don't intend for it to sound all doom and gloom, or to paint myself, hopefully I don't intend to paint myself as a self-serving narcissist. I'd rather bring a perhaps hopeful message with a degree of realism in it, that I have found that over 10 years or so, I've become marginally better at navigating this field of social change than when I began. And the reason has nothing to do with CV-based achievements, with shining qualifications, or with 5-step processes to changing the world that I've somehow picked up from a book. It has everything to do with a gradual and painful journey that I'd probably call allowing myself to be human, which what I found has a lot more to do with just allowing myself to realize that I can't, there are many simple things in my own life that I can't change, let alone in the world. It's what I would refer to as an inch by inch journey, not one of the sort of the more impactful ones, but it's a daily humbling journey. To give us a few snapshots, when I was in my early 20s, I was very insecure and believed that only professional success would cure me of that. I continued doing the same thing, much like Gianmarco. I was sort of going in different jobs, putting in hard hours, believing that one of them would be the place that I belonged, and thinking that one day I would feel better. It took a very poor performance review to kick off a process of my falling apart, and then a spinal injury to finish off that process, and to find myself face to face with being less competent than I believed and less mobile than I wanted to be. It kind of forced me to look for something a little bit beyond the small lens that I've been looking through. Also, a few years later, I found out how just utterly terrifying it was to be vulnerable with someone, to give up control. I entered one of the most important relationships of my life, and years later, I watched that come to an end when I really didn't want it to. And rather than bouncing back with resilience, as we often tell ourselves, and getting back on the horse, I spent long months eating takeaways with romantic comedies starring Hugh Grant, on worse days, Adam Sandler. And finally, over the last years, I've noticed with some horror that the people in the generation above mine, that my parents particularly, have been getting older. No longer are they the support system I thought they were. I'm actually becoming the support system, which is slightly terrifying. So those are snapshots of experiences that have led to a slightly terrifying realization that this mentality of leading change, of being the one who controls change, that makes the world a better place, is ultimately quite unhelpful and quite arrogant when worn, at least when I wear it. I have not been able to control my feelings through professional successes. I have not been able to change the outcomes of relationships, nor can I make my parents younger. And whether I have wanted to or not, the world's become a much messier place through my eyes, my position within it less certain, and my limitations and deficiencies probably the only thing with any clarity to them. And knowing that, paradoxically, and here's perhaps the hopeful shining thing around the cloud, I find myself feeling more confident than ever that I'm able to work in the change sector, as I'm much less likely these days to get in the way of those I work for, of those who often are far more inspiring than me. And by accepting a little bit more the messiness of life, I find that I can give those who are living circumstantially in a degree of chaos the actual sense that I'm not trying to change or control them, that I'm not trying to present a facade that I'm someone who's going to save the day, because I can't. And that by being more human with them, I've definitely discovered that that's more impactful often than anything else. So there you have it. It's fairly cliched, but by identifying the ways that we get in the way of ourselves and others, I would say that's probably a surefire way of being able to work more humbly and realistically in this world we call leading change or change making. And yeah, I think I'll leave it at that.
Wow, thank you so much for allowing us to realize that we're allowed to be human and accepting the messiness of life. Also while drinking a cup of tea, it looked very, very storytelling-ish.
Very English, super English.
Good mold. But thank you for the beautiful story and sharing your story of change. And with that, we pass on the mic to the last but not least speaker, Myra, who's now sitting in Germany. Over to you, Myra. Just need to unmute. And then we're good to go.
Yeah.
All good.
All good? Cool. So first, thank you, Escape the City, and also Amani for inviting me to be here. It's such a pleasure to hear these stories and to be part of this group of people that studied at Amani and has amazing stories to tell and things to share. I'm always amazed. Sorry for this, but I really like the stories that I heard. So my story is I wanted to tell my story talking about people, because I think that along the way, in every turning point, there was always someone or more than one person there to catalyze the change in my life. So I'm Brazilian. I studied journalism. And in 2015, I was a partner in a communication agency and consultancy firm. We were writing texts or doing communication material for big companies in Brazil to tell about their sustainability initiatives, and also conducting design sprints for them to improve their product and services to be more sustainable. It was already a great job with purpose. I really liked it. Like fancy buildings, fancy companies, executive people in the biggest city, one of the biggest cities in the world. It was really nice. But at some point, it was not enough. I was like, I don't want to talk about change. I want to make change. I want to create impact on the ground. So then I was like, okay, how can I do this now? And I was like, maybe I have never lived abroad. I have never worked abroad. Maybe this is the way to go. I can get a fresh perspective. And I started looking for alternatives and nothing seemed to fit, Everything was maybe too traditional. I was like, okay, let's do an MBA in Harvard. Let's go crazy, But I was like, no, that's not it. And one day I met one person, a consultant that I found really, really cool. And he was giving a lecture in one place during the week. And I went to this lecture. By the end of I don't remember what the lecture was about. But at the end, I remember he talked about the Amani program, the SIM program. And he was talking about it, and every word I was like, that's it, that's it. You know, you were feeling excited suddenly. You were like, this is what I want to do. That's what I was looking for. And that's how I got to know about the SIM program. Cutting this story short, 1 month after I was living in Kenya, I applied, I passed the process, and 1 month I packed my things and I was in Kenya. So it was really life-changing. The program was amazing, not only for the skills that I learned, but mainly for the inner journey. And that's what I needed at that point, like get to know more about myself, what I wanted to do, and trust that I was able to do things, build my confidence. And again, someone came in my way in this moment. During the program, we all do, some of us do an apprenticeship in an organization. And I did mine in a carbon credit consultancy. And my boss was this person, my new boss. He really believed in me before I did, because I was working there and he was working remotely in 2016. It was not due to Corona. He was working remotely, and by the end of my apprenticeship, he came, and it was the first time I was meeting him. And then he said, Maida, I really like our interaction, your work so far. So next year, I'm moving to Mozambique to build this business we have been talking about recycling and circular economy. And I want you to come and join the team. Would you like to do that? And then I was like, whoa, okay. So I said, yes, let's go for it. So next year, 2017, I was in Mozambique doing something completely different that I have ever done in my life. I was building together with a group of people, not only myself, of course. I was part of the team. We were building this company that wanted to transform the waste sector in Mozambique, increasing recycling and working with waste pickers. And it was really a totally different journey, like from the glass buildings and fancy stuff to visit dump sites in one of the poorest countries in the world, because Mozambique is really in the IDH, really one of the last spots. But I learned so much and I loved so much the experience. I stayed in Mozambique for 5 years. In my second year, this boss again showed me another way, because I came to him after 2 years and I said, I want a raise. I really would like more money to work here. And then he said, okay, we can give you more money, but I also want to offer the position of CEO of the company. So if you are willing to accept that, I'm willing to give you more. So then at that moment, again, he had more for me than I was expecting. I became the CEO of 3R, that is a recycling company in Mozambique. I worked there. We recycled hundreds of tons. They're still working. But another person came on the way, and that was not a job or not professional thing. It was my partner. I met my partner in Mozambique, and he got a job in Germany. And we together decided that, okay, it was time, and we were going to move to Germany. So I moved in 2020, and it was COVID times. And at 3R, we decided that I was still going to lead the company remotely, which I did for 1 year and a half. It was an awesome experience. It was really nice. But at the end of last year, we were like, okay, we need someone on the ground. And my plans were to be in Germany. And another little person came on the way. I had a baby in December, a Christmas baby. And now here I am in a small village, 1,500 people in Germany, giving myself and allowing myself to have the time to think about me and what I also want in my personal life. And what will come professionally, I still don't know. But yeah, I'm quite confident that something will come up. So just to finalize, what I would like to say is, for maybe someone that is here and is listening and looking for a change or to work with impact, there is not only one moment of change. There will be several moments of change in your life. And so maybe this can take a bit the pressure of the now, I have to find all the answers. I have to do everything. Maybe this is one step, as John Marco said, it's break it down. It's one step. And as Sam said, we are not going to solve all the problems of the world. Maybe if we are not on the way, we are already doing a lot. So from my experience, if I could leave some stuff for you, it would be, if you really want to create change in your life, first look actively for it, go to events, research, really look for it actively, and then be interested in the people around you, because that's where it will come from. Once the opportunity presents itself, say yes, really say yes. Don't put a lot of buts. If your heart is saying you should go for it, just go for it. Don't say, oh, it's far, I need to do this, I need to do that. Just go. And once you accept it, just embrace it with all the challenges and all the beauty that it will bring. So that's it.
Thank you so much. I like referring to your story as the change chameleon, because you so beautifully change into the places that you go. And thank you for telling us about not not just talking about the change, but actually walking the change. And with that, we have all the stories of change with us today, and I'm opening up the floor to any questions if anyone has for our 4 panelists. Any advice looking for change or anything like that? Or yeah. While we wait, we've all had nuggets of wisdom passed on to us by these 4 amazing fellows. Thank you so much. Maybe if we could do a round robin and just see what's the one piece of advice that you would like them to take away. I know you've all mentioned it a bit in your speeches, but just as a nice summary at the end, what would be one thing that you'd like everyone to leave here today with, just so that they can walk out and take their change journey? I think we'll start in the order that we did the speeches in, if that's okay. So if Jean, you're okay with going?
Yes, I'm okay. Could you repeat the question, please?
Of course. So the question is, any one piece of advice that you'd like someone to leave today to help them with the mindset of change?
The 2 main ones, I shared it already. And what I'm maybe, I can go a bit further into detail, like break it down into small little steps. What really helped me is like go out there and talk to people. I did it for 1.5 years. So I tried to connect with different type of people in the social sector, with social entrepreneurs, with people from NGOs, with people working in educational institutions. So you get a better understanding how it works, what type of profiles you can find there, and you can collect so much advice from these people, and then really see where you can step in, or which part resonates with you. So and also it will maybe make your fear of shifting careers disappear, in case you're trying to shift careers.
Thank you so much. Clara?
I think one thing maybe that helped me once I actually believed in it is nothing really is forever. Yeah. So we can also change again. So just because we make one decision doesn't mean we have to do it forever, or just because we take one step doesn't mean we can never go back. So just because I decided Nepal is my home, I think I was scared then I would leave something else. But I mean, I feel like nothing is forever. So I think we can just try things, and if we trust ourselves, then I think things come up. We don't have to put too much pressure on what is going to come next, or what would be the consequences if we do this now or this now. I feel so many things, even though when I thought things through, they changed again. And even I think with COVID, we all realized that, like, I mean, you know, nothing really is forever, and every change is only constant. So I feel we don't have to put so much pressure on this change, and we can just calm ourselves by thinking, okay, you know, like, it's going to be fine. Like, there will be something coming up. It's not the end of the world, you know. I think, yeah, that is what maybe helped me on the way.
That's really helpful. It like gave me chills. It's like, that's what I needed to hear. So thank you. Sam?
I think it's just that question for me of, you know, how are you getting in your own way? and know that isn't a list that ends. It's not like I at one point tried to tick it off as a to-do list. You'd get through them and you'd be like, okay, done that one, I've got this out of the way, I'm almost there, but you don't get there. The same ones come back. It's a circular story, and it's ultimately, it's kind of, there's a real joy in being defeated. It's really nice to sort of really just see yourself collapse and fail. And I don't mean that, I mean that genuinely. It's like quite humbling to have that happen again and again, to the point where you realize all those things that you think you should be doing are like their ideas, their beliefs, and unless we can embrace that messiness and that lack of control, we're really limited in what we can actually do, unless we can give up the ideal of what we want to do in some sense, which sounds a little bit harsh, but I don't mean it to. It's hard to do much actually in reality.
Yeah, and it's also like how we say at Amani, when you fail, we aim for you to fail fast because you can learn, and then we also have that mindset of like, how fascinating, like what can I learn from this moment? And I get that. Yeah, I don't know if that rings any Amani bells, fellows. And Myra, your turn.
Well, maybe just to add to that would be just trust your instincts, or just, like if you feel that that's right, or that's what you should do, just go for it, and see what happens. As Clara said, you can try again. It will be, if it's not that, maybe it's next. But if that makes your, if you can't sleep at night because you were thinking about that, so in a good way, of course, if you are really excited about something, come on, give it a chance, Yeah.
That's really like overthinkers in the room. I'm sure we can all relate to that. Thank you so much. We have a question in the Q&A from Francesca. She's asking, so I'll put the question out there, and then whoever wants to grab it, please go for it. So the question is, what helps you find courage to make that leap for what you do? Courage and leaping. Clara, it seems like you might want to unmute yourself.
I think it is what little bit what I said before, like nothing really is forever. So if you take that leap, don't stress yourself out that you can never go back and you can never change anything again. And of course, sometimes we take risks and there might be consequences. And especially if more people are involved, maybe we have to think about more things than just ourselves. I think once maybe families are involved, it gets more difficult. But I think, nothing is forever, even our life isn't forever. So I feel just putting sometimes things in perspective can help make the things a little bit smaller. Then sometimes we just get overwhelmed. We think it's so big, but then, over the past year, then you look back, like it wasn't that big, but it feels so big for ourselves. And I think it's fine to feel big, but we can also see it in the bigger picture.
Amazing. It's also like, Jean, you mentioned the small steps as well.
Yes, exactly. I said this, there is no leap. In my case, there was never a leap. For example, attending the Amani program, this was just a small little step because it was a 5 to 6 month program. It's a further education. Nothing can go wrong. Even if it's not the right thing, it was a further education. You can put it on your CV. You can always go back home. So that's what I meant by small steps. There is no risk, actually, if you look at these small steps. And I never saw a leap in my journey. So you don't have to be super courageous by nature to do something like this, not at all.
Amazing, thank you. Anything else you want to share? Good. Sam?
Just a small point that I think there's beauty in clarity, and it's always painful when, and it sort of follows the theme of my talk, that when you're kind of you're juggling between two different decisions, and one is to you kind of break them down as to what are these decisions actually about. You can get, at least I can get to a point where I'm like, this is about me staying exactly the same, not following the thing I want to do, staying in the same job, not stepping out, that's fine if I want to take it, but it's sort of getting to the point where I essentially create a slight binary for myself. And when I do that, maybe there is a risk. I don't mind risk too much as an idea. It's just, and I trust fear to a certain extent, that fear is something to motivate me in a sense. But it's like, when I realize that I'm making the decision to stay comfortable, it becomes very hard to stay in that decision. That's a very hard. I can, and I don't mind it sometimes if I'm in that space where it's like, you know what, I need rest. That's fine. But it's like sometimes that decision is just untenable when I realize what it is.
That makes sense. It does make sense. Thank you. Francesca says thank you. All good. Perfect. So then another question. Oh, so that was if someone is in a situation where they are trying to make change, like we've mentioned, like taking small steps and all that, is there maybe like, I don't know, an activity that you did to like get you into the mindset to help you, like, I don't know, go for a run or eat ice cream, or I don't know, change your hairstyle? I don't know. Was there an activity maybe that made you like spark that change and moment of change to help you in that process? The question might be very, very vague, but it's done on purpose. Nothing coming to mind?
I think I mean what I just feel for myself is I think we all have to probably figure out what is good for us. No, some people like to go for a run, some people like to I don't know, go to sleep early. I think it's trying to find out our own bodies, our own minds, like what is good for us. And I think sometimes it's very hard to know ourselves and to know what actually is our needs for mentally and physically. So I think trying different things to figure out, okay, when do I feel good? And I think once we feel good physically and mentally, anything gets easier. So I think if we try different things and then we figure out what is actually good for us, and then we're just trying to repeat that and bring it into our lives, it just helps us feeling better. And when we feel better, we can do better things. So I think, yeah, try different things and see what resonates with your mind and your body, and do that more often. But I think that's probably different for everybody.
That's amazing. You said, what makes you, when you feel better, we can do better things. I think that's some powerful stuff. Thank you for sharing. We have another question. Thank you for answering that one. Patty says, thank you very much. And she's going through some change now, and they're feeling a bit lost. Do you have any advice on how to find the right direction and get closer to recognize what your heart wants? I think there's a lot of overlap of what we're saying, I feel, but with any other points?
What really helped in this case was first talking to different type of people, but then second, even more important, is when you look back at life, I mean, everything from childhood, and try remember all these situations, in situations where you felt completely happy and aligned and you were in the flow, and try to figure out what maybe you can call it parameters, I'm not sure, but what conditions made it so powerful, this situation. And then if you find out these conditions, try to create such a situation again on a smaller level, kind of a prototype. It can be for 1 day or 3 days. And in my case, maybe make you understand what I mean. So I went for language stay in Cape Town in South Africa. And I was there for 2 months, and this was best time ever. And there I came across these youth development organizations in townships as well. But it was just on a very superficial level and by coincidence. But I felt it was just a very inspiring environment. And then I went back again 1 year later, only for 2 weeks, but then as a volunteer, the same place. but then you go there again with a different mindset, and then you can figure out if this really was your heart giving you a message or not, or if it was just something else. But I create these situations again by looking back in your life. What were the situations that really brought you in a flow, and in situations that really felt so powerful in your life?
Amazing. Thank you so much. Myra.
Yeah, maybe just to add, when I was in Amani, and myself and another colleague, another friend from the cohort, we were always like, everyone has this burning, everyone has this passion, and I don't. I really, like, I know that I want to create impact, I want to create change, but it's not specific. It's not specific at all. It's not education, it's not youth, it's not recycling. And sometimes it's just not. And sometimes it helps not to put pressure on us to be too specific, you know. Just keep looking, be open, and, you know, just keep going. If you know that you want to work with impact, just start working with impact in something, and see how it resonates, and see what comes. Because sometimes we put the meaning in what's happening, and it not come from outside, it comes from you. So if you see a point on that, it does not need to be, oh, I want to do this, I want to work with education with small children in a rural village of Kenya. Sometimes we just don't know. So yeah, just don't put the pressure to be very specific. Just keep walking. You know.
That's so amazing. It links to a lot of what everyone said, a lot about taking those small steps, and being okay with who you are, and finding and failing fast, and all those things, like just trying and think. Yeah, it's very cool. Thank you so much. Sam or Clara, would you like to add anything?
I was remembering back when I was young, I remember my dad used to read me the stories of King Arthur. And it struck me as really, you know, they were always off to the Holy Grail was kind of the main thing. I remember that there was a thing that they all, when the knights used to go off to try and find the Holy Grail, they went off together and they went into the same forest. But the one thing was they didn't allow themselves to go into the same piece of forest that the other knights went into. They had to go in somewhere fresh. It would be in their eyes dishonorable to follow someone else's steps. It strikes me, lostness isn't like lostness is I trust lostness. I trust when I feel lost, I usually trust that a little bit more than when I feel really, if I feel too aligned to something, there's a sense it could be that I'm doing what other people think I should be doing, and I feel good about it because it's like consensus. Oh, everyone thinks this is a good path, so I'm going to go on it, but maybe I'm just following someone else's path. Lostness tells me at least that I've stepped off the track. And then it's like getting really, really sensitive to just stimuli that comes outside of our normal modes of thinking. Because if it's part of our normal modes of thinking, it's down a normal conventional track. But if it's somewhere else, if it's coming in, you know, you can get it in all sorts of ways. And what's been said already, this sort of like just finding resonance requires a certain kind of antenna. It's a really sensitive kind of antenna, looking for different experiences and what resonates and where and why, and just interrogating that. It's very small steps. And it's just a fundamental trust in that being lost. I think it's a very positive step for this individual, that being lost is a great sign.
Thank you. All for lostness. And last question before the clock strikes the top of the hour, if one of you could just, in a very summary thing, mention, so this person's asking, working in social environment, or the social environment change projects, it's really difficult to separate work and personal life. So how would you set boundaries to persevere your well-being, and how do you recover from setbacks? So just one of you, just sum it up quickly if you can. If possible. No.
That's a hard one. My only very quick input would be hard boundaries around time. That's one thing I input, very hard boundaries on time that I put in. But also, across the two, work life, I try and also set, in some senses, there is also really important to have alignment across those. the more that I'm one person in one and one person in the other, the more I typically, that stretches me thin. Whereas if I'm aligned on both, I don't normally need the same kind of recovery outside as I do in.
Yeah,
So
no silos.
yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of silos. I think if I can align myself throughout, then I don't need to be quite so hard with the boundaries, because I'm setting them hopefully in all aspects.
Amazing. Sorry, Simona, I don't know if we managed to answer your question, but if you want more questions, feel free to reach out to us at Amani Institute. Otherwise, without further ado, I just want to say thank you so much to these amazing fellows who have taken their time and spoken to us today. I don't know about anyone else in the room, but I was a bit lost, and I'm excited to be lost and make the moments and change and take all your words of wisdom with me. And so big thank you. And thank you to Escape the City for hosting us. And with that, I pass the microphone back to Jake for one last time before we all say goodbye.
Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. That was such an inspiring session. Hearing all those stories, I think that will resonate. Many of whom are going through similar periods of change, whether that's more specifically in their career. So I think those stories would have been amazing to hear. Thank you, Melis, for hosting such an amazing event. And this will be available, I think, on our LinkedIn channel for people to watch back. And you've obviously put all of the links in the chat. So please do get in touch with any of us, either at Escape or at Amani, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.